Okay, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be GuardiaN, very famous AWP player from CS Source and CSGO. So I notice everywhere that talks about your history in Counter-Strike always mentions this brief period when you actually did play 1.6. You played it for like a year or something, right? And you were playing with teams from your region, like Slovakia, people from Czech Republic, etc. Right? I realize from knowing people like Oscar, there was basically no chance if you come from that area to basically ever become like a proper pro and like go to the big tournaments and stuff. It wasn't like now where in theory, teams can come from anywhere. Was it just that reason why you switched to Source? Did you actually like 1.6? Would you have stuck with it if you could have?
To be honest, I started 1.6. I started CS, I think it was around 2001. So I played 1.6 or 1.5 even, or 1.3 since 2001, around that. Sure. And I didn't even stop playing 1.6. I played it till like 2012 when CSGO came. The second half. Yeah. I played CS Source for like 1.5 years or something, maybe 2 years maximum. But during that time, I was still playing tournaments in 1.6 because I enjoyed it more. CS Source wasn't bad. The scene was just much smaller than 1.6 at the time. But I liked both games. Both games had something special in it. And yeah, so I played everything I could. And if we talk about the Czech and Slovak scene, the thing is, the mentality here is completely different. The players want always something to get for playing, but that time you couldn't get it. So it was either you are dedicated to play and get better, or you will not achieve anything. And that's how Czech and Slovakia is. It's sad, but we cannot fix it or change it. Nowadays it's a little bit different because we have some like X-Status were in minor. I think they lost both games today. So that's the first team actually from this region from these two countries that made something in Europe. So it's nice, but sadly our scene is very small, and the mentality is like, give us something and we will be dedicated, or we will not play. And that's the wrong view at the game or at this scene.
So when people see and hear the story of GuardiaN, they are going to think, oh, so is GuardiaN just like, okay, the example I'd give in CSGO would be like Nico. We all know Nico's amazing, but no one else knows anyone else from Bosnia, and they don't have a team or anything. So people just assume, right, he's obviously just way more talented, and that's why he kind of got out of there and he got into better teams. Were you actually really driven when you first started CS, like when you were first becoming a pro? Do you just have a lot of natural talent? What's your take on it?
I remember the times when it was 2001 when my brother brought home the CS from internet cafe. He had the CD, and I started to play the game. And after a few weeks, like I felt like I'm pretty good in the game. Like I can feel the headshots and stuff. But it was just the beginning. It wasn't anything big, but I could feel that I could do something in this game. And I didn't give up. Like in 2012, when CSGO came out, I always tried to do my best. Or even in 1.6, I always wanted to win everything I could. And I even played like, when I didn't go to school because I was sick, I used to play, 10, 15 hours a day and sleep like 5 hours and stuff like this. So I was very dedicated because I liked the game, and like CS is something special. It's not like other FPS games. It's something you already felt is competitive, even though there were no tournaments. Even if you played like 10 men, it was always competition. Like you want to be the best between all the 10 players. So I was always dedicated, and I didn't care if I get something out of it or not. But I always believed that in the future I will make something out of it. So I never gave up. And in 2002, it was 2013 or 14, I started to work in Hewlett Packard. So there was time, like I used to work 12 hours a day, and I just took my PC to the company, and I played like IM qualifier that we qualified to Poland, the first IM Katowice. Yeah. Which was only 4 teams, and I played it from the office, and it was the night shift, and my team was like, okay, just play it, So that's how I was. I slept 4 hours. I was working 12 hours, and the rest of the hours I was playing. So that's how I was, and I think I reached something.
Okay. So when you were playing in Source, everyone who comes from Source remembers you most fondly from this team Reason Gaming, especially because, like, in the early days of Source, you know, like, UK obviously had quite a big scene in that game and had a lot of lands, etc. And I remember whenever I hear stories from, like, Henry G and all the people who are in the Source scene, everyone thought that you and everyone else in that team was cheating, basically, right? That was the famous thing. They all thought you were cheaters, right? You, PHP, and then I can't remember what was the name of the other player, the other AWP player or something that was in that team. There was another one, right?
WT, I think.
He was there just before you, right?
Yeah.
So was that really the reputation? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember, because the first event I went to, it was a huge event in CS30. It was called, I think, LAN 79 or something in France.
Okay, yes.
And it was my first CS Source event. It was after like half a year playing of CS Source. And, you know, coming from 1.6, you just want to play the game the same way. Like, you want to wallbang and stuff like this. So I came to the event, I did the same things as in 1.6. So if we played Dust 2, I would wallbang the middle the same way, or stuff like this. And I had crazy shots when we were playing Dust 2, and on the middle I was already killing like almost every round. And yeah, I remember the time when Existence and the other French teams, they were talking about me like I'm using some kind of cheat called Ventral X, and I had no idea what was that. So it was funny, but yeah, I mean, if you are good, like at that time when I played CS Source, I felt like you have the word people are using zone. I think I played 100%, even higher than 100% of my skill. So yeah, if you are in that position, you just hit every single shot and even crazy shots. So of course you feel like you are cheating, but even yourself you don't understand what are you hitting. So yeah, it's funny, but yeah, I remember that time.
Was the AWP in CS Source easier than the one in CSGO?
I feel like it's hard to say. Like, you always have to adapt to something new. And in CS Source, I mean, it wasn't easy or it wasn't hard. You could do like in 1.6 that the snipers, jump peaked. And in CSGO, it's, I think, impossible to do. I mean, it's very hard to do. To learn the timing of jump peak or jump shot with the AWP. So I mean, CSGO is quite hard, and I think CSGO is much harder than the Source one. And yeah.
Okay. So as I referenced, when you played in this Reason team, the other very famous player was this individual PHP, who was, I think, the leader of the team, right? So yeah. What was he like?
He was very smart. He was very calm. And he was practicing a lot. Like, he had the talent, but at the same time he was working on the game very hard, and he was very smart. He could win any clutch, and he would one-shot you any time in any situation. He has 1 HP against 4, he would win it, and he was crazy. I think him and RPK, they were the best CS Source players at the time, and they were quite the same, but I think PHP was better in clutching, but like aim-wise, I think they were it was 50-50. Like, they were very strong players, and compared to, for example, nowadays Nikos, Cream, or this kind, or Coldzera, this kind of crazy aimers, I think he was a little bit better, because he was never raging. I mean, he never gave up any game. He would. Even if you are losing 15-0 and he has 0-15, you always believe that you could trust that he would come back. And yeah, he was that kind of player.
Okay. So when you came over to CSGO, and like you say, in the early days, you were also working full-time as well, as like a job, because in the very early days, not many teams made much money. And early on, for like the first 6 months or something, you were obviously playing in teams from your home region. You hadn't yet made the daring move to go into the CIS teams. Did you actually think early on, because no one ever asks anyone this, right? But I remember in the early days of CSGO, everyone who came from 1.6 actually thought the game was going to fail. They were like, the scene's really small. Like, not a lot of people actually liked the game, What was the early days of CSGO like for you when you were in those like Slovakian type teams? Like, were you actually thinking you were going to play for a long time? Did you think this could be like the new game?
When I got to know that CSGO is coming out like a new game, I believe that it will be much bigger than 1.6, because it's a new game, and I mean, Valve failed to create a new game years ago. I think it was 2005 when CS Source came out, and they failed to create the scene around it. And I believe that it cannot happen second time. So I believe that the CS:GO will grow much more than CS Source and 1.6 together. And yeah, there we are. So I had the kind of trust in Valve that they will create something competitive, because I think that time it was already Dota, and they wanted something on the same level in FPS. And I remember when the CS Source players, they went to Seattle to talk about the CS:GO. So from PHP, we knew that they are creating something to have the same level as Dota in competition. So I believe they will not fail, and I just kept playing, even though I was sleeping not much, and I was completely dedicated, and I believe I will be a good player one day in CS:GO.
Even when you were playing in these like Slovakian teams, and the teams did, sometimes they did all right, but they never had like super high placings. Already your stats were like ridiculous, and people already could see you were a good player. Were you just good from the day one in CS:GO? Was it just an easy transition?
No, it wasn't. It was very hard transition. I mean, I even wanted to quit a few times because the AWP was impossible to play.
Okay.
So I remember me and Stiko, I invited him to the apartment where I was living. So we had like a mini boot camp to start with CS:GO. He was playing with me in the team that time, and we were playing DM like, I don't know, 10-15 hours a day of CS:GO, and I always felt that the game is so broken. And I tried to play the AWP, and I was like, no, I'm not going to play sniper anymore and stuff like this. And after a month, I tried to grind CS with only sniper rifle, and somehow I managed to understand how does it work. Like, the zoom is moving, so when you are moving, it's more blurry and stuff like this. So I learned how to control it and how to play with it. So after a month or two, I felt like, yeah, it can work. But if we talk about the skill, it came much later. I mean, I used to play 10-15 games of ESCA per day in 2012 and 13 when the game came out. So I worked really hard to actually understand this new game. So I mean, it was very hard from the beginning, and especially when you are playing in Slovak team, you basically you are not playing any tournaments against a good team, so it's much harder to get good at the game if you're not practicing against good teams. So it was very hard, unfortunately, but yeah.
So obviously the big moment in CS:GO where things like really got going for you was when you joined this Virtus.pro team. And for anyone who's listening now, we're not talking about the Polish team. We actually mean when it was a CIS team, and it was basically Dosia, his brother Fox, you had Adren, that was a player you replaced though, you had Kucha, you had Angel, you had a bunch of players who later, it was obviously Hellraisers, and most of them are still around the scene now. Like when you joined this team, I remember, first of all, it's weird because there's always been a lot of players from CIS countries, so you'd think they would pick a player from there. But also, isn't it true that you did not speak Russian when you joined this team?
No, I didn't speak Russian at all. How it was, I joined the team and we started practicing some maps, and Fox was always showing me, he was teaching me how to say the words in Russian. So
okay.
He taught me how to call the numbers, because in CIS you have numbers basically on every map. So for example, on the cache, the forklift and around it, it's like 100. So I had to learn how you say 100 in Russian.
Oh, okay.
And stuff like this. So every time we were practicing new map, he would go over the map with me, and he taught me how to like the calls of the maps and names. Okay. So that was my first Russian at that time, and then it got better time by time.
Okay. So basically, they could call a spot, but you had no clue what they were saying between the rounds.
From the beginning, no, but then later I learned, because they took the overview of the map. They made, they wrote the names on the map, and then I could learn after the game or before the practice. So I used all my time to learn this kind of stuff, and it took some time.
One thing I always wondered about is, because not only did you join this team, but obviously later you ended up joining Navi as well, and you were in these teams collectively for a long time in your career. One thing that surprises me about that is every time I've ever heard you interviewed or watch you play or hear you talk at events, you seem like someone who's quite a calm guy, and you seem like generally you like things to be calm and for people to just, you can be competitive, but you don't want people screaming and shouting. Now, if you want that, those are the wrong teams to join, aren't they? Because every time I've ever seen Russian players or Ukrainian players, we all know their favorite word is suka. They're just saying it all the time, aren't they? They're all raging every time they die as well. Wasn't it tough for you to be in that kind of environment?
I have no issues with, I have no issues with rage. If you rage at yourself that you made some mistake, then okay. I have nothing against it. But when you are like ruining the atmosphere in the team, like raging at some teammate, I don't like that, because if you're playing official game, then it's not nice for the other player, because if you rage at him, then you just break his current game. So most of the time you cannot recover and you play bad because someone raged at you for like stupid mistake. And in general, I don't like that. Like in Navi, we had issue before when we still had Zeus.
Yes.
That most of the players, they were discussing the mistake during the game, yes. So they didn't focus on the next 2 rounds. So obviously we most of the time lost the next 2 rounds. So that's why we were known to start the games from 0-5, and then we could come back to 10-5 or something like this, because they would discuss it over and they would start focusing on the game. So that was a huge issue, and it happened a lot of times. Even I remember Los Angeles ESL Pro League finals when we lost 3-2 to FNATIC, when we were winning 13-3 against FNATIC on T side, and then we lost it 16-14.
It was on train, right?
No, it was Inferno. We completely crushed them on City side, and I remember it was like 12-3 or 13-2. I don't remember. And then we won the pistol round, and after that we had lost the force buy. And then they started to argue with each other. Why did we do this and stuff like this? So that's what I don't like. And in general, I'm a very calm guy. I don't remember when did I rage like in game at something. Only thing I rage about when the internet is not working as it should online. And that's all. Basically, I'm not raging at the game because it's stupid. Like, if you made mistake, then you just realize it and you will try to not do the same mistake next time. So that's how I am.
So a lot of people know the story that NIP in the early days went 87-0. That's such a famous stat, that everyone remembers it. But what a lot of people don't know is that the 87-0 was only sort of like the first maybe like 7 months of CSGO. And actually as a team, they still used to be, like the best team for like maybe a whole year. And then like they were still always top 4 for like the first 2 years almost. So during this span of time, yes, they lost, but they still used to win the tournament most of the time. And not many teams ever actually won a series over them. And actually your team, the one before you joined, was obviously the first to beat it. But obviously when you were in the team, you had that tournament, the EMS Summer one, where you beat them in the semi-finals famously, and then you played very games in the final. Yeah. Was it a big deal to beat NIP?
It was very, very, very... I mean, it was very important win, especially for me, because I have never defeated them before, and I played them a lot of times before with my Slovak team, and even with Virtus.pro, I think before we played some online games, so we never defeated them. And the thing is, it was probably the hardest game in the way of mentality and mental state. They would suck all of your power, and the game took everything you could. So after the game we won, we faced 3 games. We couldn't even play our game because we were just, I would say, exhausted some way. Okay.
Like, it was also a pretty epic game, right? It was like 4-3 maps.
I think so. It was a very close game and very long game. So I think we were just exhausted after the game. It's that time to play NIP was a big deal, and you had to get right for us. They were hitting all their shots, or Freiberg. Yes. He was so good at just rushing first and killing 1-2 guys and opening the side. So it was very hard. I mean, it's hard to describe. You have to just play them. Like if you do roll back to 2013 or that time, then I can remember it was very hard. I think I don't remember a game nowadays that was that hard, I think.
Okay. So one of the bizarre things, okay, is we've described, like, yes, it's a weird setup to have this team with CIS players and then someone who doesn't speak Russian, but it obviously worked because you had a few results that were good. You had like top 4 at Dreamhack, and then here you came second at this EMS. But then it wasn't even that long after that they basically kicked you out the team, right? Because they went and made this. Well, I guess technically it went the other way. They left the team and went and made Astana Dragons, and they tried to make this super team. Were you shocked when that happened? Like, did you get any kind of warning? Did they just one day wake up and they were gone?
I wasn't shocked because I got the warning that I think it was after Dreamhack Summer. Angel told me that they're forming a new team, and I knew I'm not going to be there, because like, you know, I'm not speaking Russian, so why would they keep me? Even though I could play good at that time, but yeah, I wasn't sure. I knew it, and I'm actually happy it happened because it was a great experience, and I think I showed my like very good results from myself as individual. So I was very happy that I got that first experience, and then I just rolled from there.
Yeah. So people have heard this story actually via Taz that Virtus.pro, the organization, actually wanted you to stay. And they actually were trying to convince Taz and Neo and those guys when they were making what now we know as the 5-man lineup, like, oh, you should have GuardiaN in the team. Like, let him join, he can play. Were you on board with that idea? You wouldn't mind just going and play with them? What do you think it was going to happen?
I actually didn't know that Virtus.pro wanted to keep me. I got to know after like 2-3 years. I think it was like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. I got to know Anton, their CEO, told me that they wanted to keep me and play with the Polish guys. I mean, I would be ready to try it, and I would be ready to learn new language, just because of CS. Because that's how much I believe in CS. I was ready to learn new language to play in a team. So if I would know and they would contact me that, hey, we want to try to play with you, then I would even try to learn Polish and stuff. So yeah, I didn't know, but yeah, that's how it is.
So when you joined the Navi team, like, unfortunately, when people think of Navi, they're still going to think of the team that when you were at your best in the team and it was always in the finals, it was top finishes. But when you actually first joined that team, they were in pretty bad condition because, this Astana Dragons thing had happened. So Markova left them, and then Edward had come back, but they weren't a very good team. They went out in the first major in the group stage. When you joined the team, did you know any of the players? Did you know it was going to be a good team?
I didn't know any of them. I that time I knew Edward the most because we played the first major qualifier together with Hooch, Overdrive, and I think Stiko. I took Stiko that time to the mix, and that time I was closest to Edward because we told like, hey, maybe we could create some team or something, and then at Dreamhack Winter, that was the first major. Navi manager or someone, I don't even remember how exactly it was. I think we just met, we talked about it. I was watching the games with them, so somehow we got to the talk if I want to play with them and try to play in Russian team again. And I said like it was instant yes, like yeah, of course, why not? Why would I decline? So there's nothing special behind it. I mean, maybe Edward just said something to them that I'm good or something, and yeah, that's how it was. I mean, there wasn't anything. I didn't know the players at all. It just started like I got offer and I said yes, and we just started to play.
So, I referenced this to you before we started the interview because recently, Double Tap did this fun little interview where the whole point was they just asked different people and players and casters, who's the worst person to room with? And you told this funny story, right, where when you first got to Navi, you went to the major and you were rooming with Zeus. And, like the first game was at like 10 a.m. and you're sort of looking at your watch, it's 4 a.m. and Zeus is still up eating pumpkin seeds, watching stand-up comedy on television. And obviously you're probably thinking to yourself, like, what the fuck is this? This guy's the in-game leader, right? What is Zeus like as a leader? Because obviously at this time, especially, he was in full control of the team, right? So what is he like? Because from the outside, he's quite a mysterious guy because he doesn't speak much English to us,
I would say that time Zeus was the best leader in the world. He could come up with an idea from nowhere, and it would make the game. It would make us win the game. So I mean, even though he was not sleeping like till 4 or 5, I know why did he do it, probably because watching, for example, stand-up comedies and relaxing, that's something he needed for his mind. Like he had to relax some way. He watched a lot of comedies. He was laughing at them. I was like, I can sleep over through everything, so I didn't care about it.
Okay.
I'm actually happy that he found something to find fun in it, and I think it made him to think much more positive. So when we were playing after I remember from the beginning he wasn't watching. Like he was more the kind of guy, like he could get upset and he would rage at some stupid mistake. But after some months playing the team, he was changing. Like he stopped raging at most of the things. So he learned how to control his emotions, I would say. So yeah, I think that was the way he found his emotional control, I would say.
Okay. So it's interesting you say that, because one of the reasons, not just because I knew him from 1.6, that I always rated Zeus very highly was actually this period of time. It's before you guys got flamie, because back then, actually people didn't look at Navi and say, this team's full of skilled players. It was like a good team, you know? It was like you, Seized, Edward is still pretty good. Like there's some good players, but there's also, you know, Starix and Zeus are old players and people didn't think of them as very skilled at the time. So yes, people knew GuardiaN was a very good AWPer, but actually, if you ever look at that time, Zeus was like the first one in CSGO who brought that really slow terrorist side that now all these teams do. Like Brazilian teams do it all the time, you know, where you run the clock all the way down and you go into the site at like 20 seconds after you've totally taken over control of the map. You've used every flashbang and smoke, and he kind of came up with this. He was pretty good at grinding it out, right?
Yeah, I mean, he wanted, like, his style was get control of like 80% of the map and then decide either we go A or B last 30 seconds. So yeah. I mean, the strats we had were very nice. I mean, the strats he come up with, they were perfect that time, and they were most of them working like any map. So I mean, I liked it. He let me to do whatever I wanted. On T side, he let me to find first tracks anywhere I wanted. He wasn't like, no need, or he never stopped me. Like he trusted in me and I trusted in his call. So when I told him like, hey, let's do this, but I will kill somewhere or try to find a kill or make something, make them use the grenades against me and stuff like this. He would never say no. So in that way, he trusted me and we trusted in him. So I mean, his tactics were very good at the time. I think he had the best tactics 3 years ago, because the meta game was completely different. It wasn't about individual skill before. It was more about team play, and team play was very important at the time. That's why we were good, I would say.
So I remember a really, really important tournament in Navi was, okay, so the first major you went to, it didn't go well. That was like the first big LAN you'd gone to. But you had this tournament. It was a Star Series tournament, so obviously CIS players at home. And it was the one where you guys only got invited because FNATIC said they didn't want to go because of like the war or whatever in Ukraine. And so what happened was, it was all the best teams, basically. It was like the Virtus.pro team, now the Poles. It was NIP, who were very good. And it was, I think they'd already become Titan at that point in time, the very game. So basically, like 3 of the best teams in the world. And then you got your spot just because FNATIC couldn't go. And famously, this is the tournament where you just wrecked everyone and won the whole tournament. And this was a very good tournament for you individually, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was nearly the most perfect tournament I have ever played, because, but the point is, when I look back to it, I would say these top teams, they underestimated us. They were thinking that we are not that good, so we are not like big matchup for them. It was more like NIP and Titan or Virtus.pro, but somehow we were on top of our game. Everyone was playing skill-wise good, individually good decisions from Zeus. So I think we surprised every single team, and that's why we won. But of course, that time we thought that we are a super good team, and it's just the beginning of winning tournaments. So it's hard to say what was it. I mean, if you look back now, maybe the teams underestimated us, and that's why we won. and they haven't played their best game as they should. It'll be questionable, but yeah, of course we won the tournament. I'm happy. That was a huge win for us because we were losing everything. We didn't pass the group stage in Katowice. I mean, we were practicing. We were on boot camp almost 1 month, and then we come to major and we lost both games in the group stage. So that's quite sad that you're playing so much and you were grinding CS. You were like no lifing CS, and then this happens, and it was that win in Starladder was very nice.
So the next major, Cologne, was the one where people forget this match, but I think this has to be one of the most brutal losses, right? It's where you played FNATIC in the quarterfinals, and the key detail people need to know is, I know now people think of Navi and they think, right, well, the one map Navi doesn't play is Cash, but this is back when actually Nuke used to be the famous permaban. And what happened in this series was, it was back when it was the first tournament that used that randomizer for the third map. And what happened was, both FNATIC and Navi, this was the new FNATIC team, so it was the one with Olofmeister and Crimson. It was like their second tournament, I think. Both teams didn't like Nuke, but the randomizer just picked it anyway, even though, neither team would ever have picked that map. And so you got this really crazy 16-14 game where I remember watching it, and you could tell neither team knew how to play the map, and there was so many ridiculous 1vx situations that Flusher won. What was this? Was this like a heartbreak loss?
When we got to know that the Nuke is the last map, it was like we have to win 2-0 or we lose. But we didn't give up. The thing is, I don't remember which maps were there. Were the first two?
It was Inferno and Dust 2, and you won Dust 2.
Yeah. So how it was? I said I'm winning. I will win at least one of the maps from first two maps. If it's going to the third map, it's up to you guys, because that time I had no idea how to play Nuke. Especially in a team game, when you're playing individually, you know how to play Nuke. You just pick everywhere you want. It's completely different. But when you're playing in a team, you have to actually practice that map to understand where the opponent can be. So I remember I had 5 to 20. I had 5 frags almost the whole game. So I was like, "Hey guys, it's up to you. You have to beat them," or I don't know what to do, because I was completely lost on that map, and I know I was very sad after the game because I disappointed the whole team with my individual game. So, I mean, and especially the last round when Flusha won 1v3 with me faking the upper side. I went down to vents, I planted the bomb, and I went up to the ramp, and it was perfect read. I don't understand, probably no one else would have done something like Flusha did. So that was very heartbreaking, and I remember the moment when we lost the last round, and it was very sad, unfortunately.
Because obviously the tragic thing about this is, like I say, this was only the second tournament where they'd had the lineup where they'd gotten Olofmeister and Crims, and little did we know, but that was obviously the start of the famous. You can't really call it a rivalry because FNATIC won every single time, right?
Yeah.
You played them so many times, and people won't realize it's not like they wrecked you. Loads of these were really close ones. Like you played Starladder, it was super close. Obviously, a bunch of the majors you got matched up. Why do you think FNATIC was just, you couldn't get past them? What was so tough about playing them?
I know exactly why. I mean, I remember when I think Zeus had some kind of mental block against FNATIC, because he used to say they're just too good. I have no chance to shoot and stuff like this. He already gave up sometimes before we even played the game against FNATIC. So I think it was some kind of mental block, and not only Zeus had it, but some of other players too, because FNATIC was probably the most skilled team at the time, and when you were facing them, they just crushed you with pure skill. They didn't use tactics. They could just rush B and crush you. So I think everything was in our heads. I mean, I don't feel like I had issues against FNATIC. It was something it wasn't even a team issue. It was just in some players that they didn't believe in win against FNATIC, and that's why we were down to, I think we lost. We played in, I think, 18 times at the LAN, and we lost all the maps. So I think it was 0-18
No, you won some maps for sure because you had like some series like that one was 2-1.
Oh yeah, maybe it's games.
In series, yes.
Yeah, I think it's games probably.
They won all the series for sure.
Yeah, it might be. So we lost every single.
Well, until the end,
game.
until you beat them at the Star Series this year, right? So you finally did.
They didn't.
In the Kiev, you beat them in the quarterfinals.
Oh, I did.
Let me think. Yes, I believe you did.
Oh, might be.
I think you played them in the quarterfinals at Star Series and beat them, and then you.
I actually don't remember.
Well, it wasn't that memorable then, but you got the win in the end. I guess it didn't really matter. Then.
Yeah, it might be, but the point is that time when we had the old lineup. I think it was all about mentality. Like some of the players that really gave up before the game, so that's why we didn't have a chance to win. Like we could play our best skill-wise, but still we didn't believe in our win. So that's why they crushed us every single time, and that's it.
Sure. So I remember a match I wanted to talk about from Dreamhack Winter 2014, because you had a game that I think is a very weird game, because in the quarterfinals, you played Dignitas, which was basically like Astralis now, but back when they had FNATIC as their in-game leader. And this is the game where, before this tournament, right, famously, that Dignitas team used to be like insane in practice, So online, they were amazing, but they were the famous team that used to choke in the semis and stuff. So because coming into the tournament, they were so insane online. I remember some teams were even telling me, oh my God, they might win this major, And then obviously when they see they have Navi, they're thinking to themselves, right, well, we're going to win this match and then we'll play LDLC in the semi-final. And I remember they did this pick ban. That's probably the weirdest pick ban I've ever seen, because what happened was, right, FNATIC looked up and noticed that Navi had only played the new version of Cobblestone like once or something, or never. And even though he'd only played the map once as well, he thought, right, we should pick this as our map. And then the other map, the one that you picked, was Mirage, which both of you were pretty good on. Now, it didn't go well. They got actually stomped on Cobblestone completely, and you won this series 2-0. Do you remember this bizarre pick ban?
Yeah.
Had you actually never played Cobblestone at the time or something?
No, actually, we would never imagine that they can do something like that, but in my honest opinion, it was a cocky ban phase from them or from FaZe, because thinking that picking a map that you don't even play as much as the other team, that's very cocky, because I think the cocky part on this is that they thought they're skill wise much better than we are, because they had like Device and Dupri, and that time they were the crazy fraggers, and they could like 30 frag both of them at the time. So I mean, we punished them that way, and I mean, I knew if we win Cobblestone, then we would win Mirage, because we were good. We were very good CT Mirage team, and we could do even 15-0 that time. So I mean, it didn't matter who we are playing unless it's FNATIC that time on Mirage. So I think it was very, very wrong thinking from FaZe at the time, and they got punished.
So at this time, to kind of give context to people, like Navi was basically, like obviously didn't win the big events, but was like just below that level. Because obviously the two top teams at the time was FNATIC and then basically LDLC, who became EnVyUs. And then you and Virtus.pro were like just below and contending with them, but they usually won most of the matches. So obviously one of the other teams you had the rivalry with was this LDLC EnVyUs squad. And in a couple of majors, they beat you. But actually, interestingly enough, you were one of the teams where when you beat them in that Star Series final, that was actually one of kind of like the nails in the coffin that made them eventually do that French shuffle, because they were so tilted by it, What was tough about that EnVyUs squad, the one with Shocks and Smiths? What was difficult about playing them?
I wouldn't say it was difficult to play them. I think it was... I mean, Dignitas and LDLC were the teams that you are comfortable to play against, like any map. Okay. Because I think the map pool, all teams had they were similar. Like, yes, we could play all the same maps, and it just came down to mistakes or individual plays. So, I mean, I never felt that playing LDLC is something special or hard or anything. It was a team actually that was easier to play, even though we lost probably many more times than won, but it never felt like they're skill-wise much stronger or team-wise. Like, of course, Kenias was at that time very, very strong sniper, and he could pick up a lot of frags and stupid mistakes from us. So that made them win more times, I would say. Like KennyS was the key player.
I mean, he was in the next lineup, but yeah, I get your point. Okay, so let me ask you this then. So obviously, everyone remembers 2015 was when the AWP change happened, right? You said at the beginning of CSGO, like you felt like the AWP's so hard to use and so difficult. Like, if you look back now, that AWP seems amazing, right? Because we know what they changed it to now. Did it affect you at all when that AWP change came in?
I don't think so, actually. I think for me it's the same as it was before the update, but for players like KennyS, because the change is that when you shoot with the sniper rifle back then, you could like slide, so the movement was much faster. So I think KennyS could abuse that very, very good, and that's why he was strong sniper at the time, because he could abuse that movement and at the same time he could snipe with it. So I think it affected mostly only KennyS that time. So I don't think it affected me.
So in this era, before you got flamie into the team, right, even though it sounds like, I know players think it's a negative if everyone thinks like, oh, GuardiaN just carries Na'Vi. But at the time, okay, yes, Na'Vi had a good leader with good tactics, and they maybe had good team play. But people do remember most of the games Na'Vi won was when like it would be like DOS 2 or it would be Mirage, and then you would have like an amazing CT side. That was like the famous kind of formula. Is there anything that's frustrating about when you can have like a 30 frag performance but you don't win the game? Like, was it tough in Na'Vi in the early days?
Some of the, like, I remember the most upsetting game was when it was online though. I think we could have qualified if we win that game on Dust 2 against FNATIC. I think 40 frags against FNATIC on Dust 2. We lost 16-14, and
yes,
I think we were winning 14-13. And if we would win the game, I'm pretty sure we would qualify for the LAN event, because I think we were missing 3 points to qualify. And yeah, that was the most upsetting loss I remember, because, you know, you wanted to go to a huge event. It was probably the first big ESL event. I mean, ESA Pro League event. So it was very upsetting. And of course, like, I'm not the player that cares about stats. I mean, it's nice to have 30 frags, 25 frags, or something like that. Of course, it's nice to have that confidence and feeling in you that you are playing good, but it didn't matter. I mean, if you lose, then you lose as a team, and I didn't care if I had 50 frags. I mean, it's still a lose, and the thing is that you just have to talk it over, like what happened, why did you lose, and it doesn't matter if you have 50 or 0 frags. What I did always, even I remember when I was played on sites with Zeus, and when he wasn't playing good, I always told him like, don't worry about it, like I'm standing behind you. If you do a mistake, I will make it right. So I never felt like it's super upsetting to lose, even though I have, I don't know, 30 frags. So it's you are playing in a team, and if team loses, then everyone is a loser. So I didn't care about that.
When you guys went to Dreamhack Cluj-Napoca, and this was the tournament where you got to the final of the major, you beat NIP in that amazing semi-final, and then in the final you had this really close map on Train where Happy did that like bullshit grenade that won that 1v1, and then they won on Dust 2. Cobblestone rather was the second map, and the decider would have been Dust 2. And I have to say, it's even on record, when I did my reflections interview with MBK, he even admits that in the final there, they were actually really worried, because they knew if they lost Train, basically, that like it would have to go to the third map, Dust 2, which at the time they actually weren't good on. Even though the old EnVyUs lands were good on that map, they didn't really play that map very much. Should Na'Vi have won this final, do you think?
I would say yes. I think if we had the biggest chance to win major, it was Cluj-Napoca. I wouldn't even say MLG in Columbus, but as close as Dreamhack Napoca. So yeah, it was very sad, and we should have won the Train. I'm pretty sure we were up 13-10 or 14-10 as CT on Train, and then I think when it was 14-10, Happy won the 1v. I even think it was 1v3 on upper on Train. So yeah, it was very lucky from him, but yeah, it happened, and we lost Train and we lost 16-6 Cobblestone. So we should have won Train, and I think Dusty would be very, very close, but we had the upper hand that time on Dust 2 over LDLC or EnVyUs. So it was very sad loss, but yeah, it happened.
When around this time, I remember, is actually when starix officially took over as the leader, back when you used to be able to be a coach and be a leader. It sounds like a crazy concept now, but it was real. It happened for about a year. So when he did this, okay, one thing I've always wondered about is when you actually watched Navi play, it didn't look that different. Like, it looked like he still ran the same sort of system that Zeus used before, and they were similar maps that you guys were good on. But obviously, he was the in-game leader. Like, how similar was starix as an in-game leader? What was he like as a leader in Navi?
I would say it was almost the same. The only difference was that we could all focus on the game, and we didn't have to, like, especially Zeus, he didn't have to focus on in-game leading, so he could play individually much better than he did when he was leading. So when he was leading, he couldn't focus on everything. I mean, it's very known that in-game leaders are not the fragsters like the other players when sure. They have to focus on their teams and the calls and economy and everything like that. So back then it was very helpful, especially for Zeus. He could just play and he didn't even have to care about tactics. Like, of course, he came up with some ideas sometimes, but when starix became in-game leader, he just played CS 100%, and starix, we didn't even change that much. I mean, we almost used the same tactics. Maybe he had a little bit different thinking that in certain situations Zeus would call different tactic, but that's the only difference, I would say.
Okay. Right, one of the things about this era we're talking about now, like end of 2015, going into 2016, prior to when the injury happened, is that Navi was a very, very good team. Like, you were in almost every single final. You were like top 4 at every single event. And if someone's a fan, right, they might naively think, well, if you used to often finish, like 5th place and then occasionally you had a top 4 in a final, they would think it would feel great just to move up a level. Now I'm making the final most of the times. But I know from most people that if you make a lot of finals, that usually means you probably were good enough to win some of these events. So most competitors, it gets depressing, actually, to keep being in the final and then keep losing, right?
Yeah.
Was it a tough period, even though in theory it was the most successful period of your career at that time, right?
I mean, of course, it's upsetting to be in so many finals and lose more than half of them. So, I mean, if you look at the games, I think I mean, of course, you had up and downs. I mean, we were like in 8 finals or something, or 6 finals in a row.
Yeah.
And then we lost to FNATIC some events, and then the Luminosity, I mean, yeah. SK nowadays came to the scene and they started to win some events. And I remember we played Dreamhack in Germany against the Luminosity. Yeah, so we had like 2 overtimes on both maps, but we won somehow. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to be in the final, but it sucks to lose. So sometimes you just rather want to be in top 4 and not losing the final. I mean, losing in the final is a very bad feeling, even though maybe the events are not so big,
sure.
Not like E-League or Major, but still, it's not nice to lose in the final when you could win most of them, and then you do some stupid decisions, and you just lose it. So,
because obviously when FNATIC was number 1, right, it's one thing if you lose to FNATIC because they were number 1, they were beating everyone, right, that's fine, but at this time, you could see a pattern from Navi, which is like, not only you got to every final, but all the ones you won were like the smaller events. And actually, famously, I don't know if people know this stat, but until it got to ESL New York later that year when you got Simple, you guys had never won one of the big 250k or more. You always used to win the little, like the 100k or something. So did you ever wonder, does the team just have a mental block? Are we cursed? What did you ever think about it?
I wouldn't say it was some kind of mental block. It's more like the other teams were more focusing on the 250k tournaments. So if they had the preparation, it was much more effective than our.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I think that time, like, not many teams were boot camping. So if you are preparing for an event and you are at home, it's much more like, you have more comfort. Of course, boot camps are nice to create some base behind your team, but I think I prefer to not bootcamp that much, because at home you can play whenever you want, how long you want, and you have the comfort to get ready for the event. And we used to bootcamp a lot in Na Vi back then, and I think sometimes it just hurt us because we were in one room just logged and we had to play, and we got tired of each other sometimes, and that's why we really lost. It was the same with the major in 2014 with Katowice, that we lost in group stage because we were almost 1 month in one room, and that's the issue. That's why we lost a lot of tournaments, I would say. Okay. We just got tired from each other, and we can find a way to win the big event.
People, when people know this story, okay, about you having the injury at Columbus and obviously it going really badly in the final, the part that's always confused me that I want to ask about is this. I remember, okay, when you played at the IEM event, 2 events before that. You played in the Katowice event and you lost to Luminosity in the semi-finals in a very close game. And I remember it was actually after this that people mentioned that you had an injury or something. But what confuses me is this, GuardiaN, is that there was an event between these two. You went to Counterpit and you were like the MVP of the tournament and you were wrecking everyone and your stats looked amazing. And then you came to Columbus and then suddenly the injury was there and you had terrible stats and everything. What happened? How did it just go so badly?
I think injury was there for long, like for a month before, before Counterpit. I mean, I never realized that it could be bad. Like sometimes I had pain in the wrist, but I always thought it's some kind of exhaustion. Like I got exhausted in my arm or something. But I used to play a lot of CS back then. Like I could play like 10 FPLs a day or 10 ESA with friends and stuff like this. So I always felt like I just got tired, and the other day or 2 days it will be okay. So that's how it was that time. And before the major, obviously you're playing a lot of CS and you just play CS 24/7. And the injury came in the playoffs. I mean, I felt so much pain in my wrist, and I thought it will be okay. But yeah, I mean, I think I was reckless and I didn't go to doctor to check it, and yeah, it was my mistake. I didn't care about that much as I should.
And did it literally make it so that, like, not even about hurting, but could you just literally not move the same way?
Yeah, it felt like I had broken wrist many times, so it felt the same way as it was broken or something. Like the muscle, obviously it wasn't bone, but the muscles were hurting in my. It wasn't even wrist. It was more like from elbow. The main muscle that goes down to your wrist, like around that, it was hurting all the way. So I mean, it was my mistake, and yeah, it caused a huge pain that I couldn't even play.
So people remember this piece of trivia as well, that like you had to use 3 times the sensitivity on your mouse in the final, etc. Right? Obviously, the stats say it went really, really badly. Could you just not hit anything, even if you're using this? Like that sounds like a pretty crazy solution anyway, to just put your sensitivity up 40. But then again, people don't know this, but you use a very low sensitivity, right?
I use very small. I do like 220 degrees all over my mouse pad.
Okay. So what was it like in this final? It must have been bad.
It was very bad. I mean, if I did move, when I moved with the mouse, it was like almost, I don't know, 400 degrees. So I had to do something, but it was very painful. But after second, I don't know, did we lose 2-0?
Yes, you lost the first one very close on Mirage, and then second was Overpass.
On Overpass, I mean, after first map, Zeus gave me some medicine, so it was much better. But still, I couldn't play as good as I wanted to. So it was very sad, but it was my own mistake. I should have gone to the doctor and let them check it if it's okay or no, and it would be much better. So it can happen to everyone. I mean, it happened to Jaedong in StarCraft. He almost he destroyed his body by practicing a lot of StarCraft. Yes. So he ruined his career. But after MLG, I fixed it. So I'm happy. It's okay.
So obviously in this final, as you mentioned, you'd already played Luminosity a bunch. Like you beat them in Leipzig, they beat you in Katowice. Now, in the theory, in this final, since the rest of us didn't know to what extent you were injured, etc., we thought maybe it's just okay, on paper, this looked like it should be like the best final ever, because the maps that came out were like basically you two teams played all three of these maps. It was like Mirage, Overpass, and I think the third one was, I think it was Train. I think Train was the decider as well. So it looked like, first of all, both teams can win, and it'll be a super amazing final. And obviously, yeah, the first map was good, it was close, but the final kind of sucked because they just won Overpass so easily. Did your team know fully how badly you were injured? Did they actually think you were going to win this final? What was the situation? Because everyone remembers after the first map, Mirage, was that one where flamie just like sat there looking at the PC and just for like 20 minutes, you know, never went up backstage, right? So he looked super tilted.
I mean, of course they knew about my injury or my pain, so Zeus obviously gave me some medicine, but I mean, it's very hard for the team as well, because they knew that one of the best players in the team cannot play as good as he could. And obviously it was very hard for their mentality. So I don't think they believe that we could win. Of course they were trying hard, and especially flamie. I remember flamie was, I think, top fragging like 30 frags or something on Mirage. And,
yes.
And of course it's very sad, especially in major final. So it's a huge thing, and yeah, it's something we couldn't change, but yeah, it was very sad. I was very upset, and I was even crying emotionally. So that if you're playing final of major, you want to help your team, and I just couldn't help my team to play as good as we used to. So it's my worst memory in my career.
Since when flamie joined the team is when people remember, like, because obviously he brought more firepower to the team. This is when Navi first looked like, right, they can win all these tournaments, they can go to the finals and majors, etc. Right, I want to ask what he's actually like as a player from someone who's played with him, because he's always been very confusing to me, because on the one hand, when he's having a really good game, his aim looks so insane. You think, like, this guy could be the best player in the world, but then he also seems like a player where, like, the best way to describe it from the outside is it looks like he doesn't really know himself how he wants to play or something. Like, he doesn't seem like a super confident guy. What's he like as a teammate?
When we picked up flamie in 2014 after Katowice, he was still young. He was much younger than he looks. Like, when he came to the team, he could rage. He could tell. He could say bad things. But if I were to say that, I think flamie did the most, like the biggest progress in the world, like from any players. Like from a very tilting guy, he became a very calm guy, and he could play very calm and not even rage anymore nowadays. Like, he did so huge progress that I think everyone can be proud of who played with him in the team. And I mean, he always tries his best. Like, obviously, when he came into the team, he was the kind of personality that he could give up very easily. But after like half year, or even it was already in Cluj-Napoca. He had the mentality to win the major. We could see it in semi-finals or finals. He was playing very good, and he never gave up, even though we were losing so hard on cobblestone against EnVyUs in the major final. He still tried his best. So I can say, in real life, he's a very nice guy. You can talk to him about anything. He's a huge fan of football, so obviously we could talk about sports and stuff like this. So in real life, he's a very nice guy, and in game, I think he still has some things to improve, and he could be even much better player as he is now. But he needs to find consistency. I think he's very inconsistent sometimes, and he can have like 5 times 30 frag game, and then he can have like 5 bad games. So if he fixes this and he will find his motivation again, I think he can be top 5 player in the world.
So people will remember that when the next major was like right in the summer, it was like early July or something, and this was the one where you guys lost to Team Liquid, and obviously this was like kind of like Simple's rise, you know, because he did very well in the third map, and then he did well against FNATIC, and he made it to the final. And so that combined with the fact that then you went and FNATIC wrecked you at E-League, I remember before this, anytime I ever talked to Navi players, because when Simple first got good in like 2014, 2015, I sometimes said to Navi players, like, oh, do you think he would ever join Navi? Like, would you ever have him? And they always used to not just be like, oh, I don't know. They would be like, no, we would never have him in this team. Like, he's bad attitude, yeah, he's really good, but we've got really good players. We've got GuardiaN, we've got flamie. We don't need him, right? But I noticed after he beat you at the major, and then after your team wasn't winning anymore, all of a sudden people were like, well, we'd have to see. Let's see how we do in these next tournaments. And then, obviously, he joined the team. Were you one of the people who didn't want Simple to join?
It's hard to say. Like, obviously, we needed some kind of change, and honestly, of course, I wanted change as well that time, because we stopped. I mean, the attitude in the team in general wasn't so good anymore. We could rage at each other, and it wasn't nice anymore. Even though, there's always someone has to go.
Yes.
If something is not working, then someone has to go. And the person who had to go that time was Zeus. And I think it was the worst move we have ever done, because Zeus was leader. Even though he wasn't playing that good that time, he was still the leader. He had still the leadership skills. He had all the good stuff that leader has to have. And okay, he was playing bad at skill wise, but yeah, I think it was a very, very bad move at that time. But the point is that we need a change, and some of the players really didn't want to play with Zeus, and then I just agreed that Zeus should go, and I mean, that's it. When something is not working, the change is needed. So
sure, yeah.
It's always someone.
Do you remember your first reaction when, like, because remember it was like a week after you recruited Simple was when Valve made that update, like, no more coaches that can be in-game leaders. Do you remember when you first heard that? Yeah,
I mean, that time I was thinking, oh, we are lost, and like we will be lost forever, because
okay.
I mean, Seas, he had like he could, a little bit, yeah. He wasn't doing bad, but he wasn't doing good. But like, I mean, he could become a good in-game leader, but it's a lot of years of working, and he has to listen to some older players, or he wasn't calm. When he was in-game leader, he was always focused on every single player. Like, he was looking at the radar, and he could get killed because of that. He didn't trust in his teammates that if he does the call, let's play default and let's get killed there, he would be focused on the mini map, and if he sees something on mini map, he would call, and that's why he didn't find his game because of that, and that's why he didn't have focus. That's why he didn't play good. So, I mean, the decision from Valve was very bad. I didn't understand why did they change it. I mean, obviously, I think in NFL the coaches are calling still in the microphone. So why did they change it in CS? Like in ice hockey, they have the same. I mean, the formation is on the bench, so the coach can call them some tactic. So for me, it was something like I would never understand why did they do that when it's normally working in sports.
Sure. So the weird thing is, when you made this move and got Simple, the first two events were about as crazy as you can get. Because the first event was the Starladder in Kiev, and you just went out last place. But then the next event was the New York event, and it sounds weird to say that you won your first 250k tournament with actually one of the more troubled Navi lineups, because you won the whole tournament. What was it like the first period when you had this terrible tournament and this really amazing one?
I didn't understand how did we win that tournament. I mean, at Starladder, I've seen so many bad things about our team. I mean, the attitude between players, like we didn't trust each other. We would flame each other, everyone. We would not listen to Seas to his calls at Starladder. And stuff like this. I mean, I didn't understand how did we win New York, to be honest. I think it came down to the individual plays, like winning clutches in most important situations. That's all. That's how we won ESL New York, I think, because we didn't have anything in favor to win ESL New York. We didn't have team play. We didn't have tactics. We didn't have the needed time to practice for ESL New York. So it's a huge unknown for me. How did we manage to win New York? To be honest.
So as I mentioned before, even though you played in some of these CIS teams that were famous actually for raging, and like as you even mentioned, sometimes people would rage during a round that's still going on, like it's live, you know, and people are trying to play the game. So normally you are seen as like the calm one, etc. Why, when you won ESL New York, this big event, why did the emotion take you over so much? What happened?
ESL New York?
Yes.
I think at ESL New York it was all like perfect. I mean, from emotional point of view, it was all good. Like nobody was complaining about someone. Nobody was complaining how the other player plays. Nobody was complaining that you are playing alone B and they just take over B without even refrag or something. So
okay,
that's why it felt good to play. Like everybody is caring only about their game, not about your game.
I mean, in Navi, you know, like the one last year.
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about last New Year. Yeah.
I suspected that. I mean, the last year one. When you won, you started crying. No one's ever seen that before. What happened?
Obviously, you know, you are playing CS for a long time.
Sure.
It's 2017, so I'm playing more than 16 years, and that was the first event that had some weight, you know, for me. So I lost so many finals. I lost 2 major finals.
Yeah.
I lost so many semifinals at 250k even. So it had a huge weight for me. I mean, that's why I was emotional. Like it meant a lot to me. It meant more than anything to win that kind of event. Like all the other players already won that kind of event. And the thing is that a lot of times, if you look back, you were better than some of the teams, but the teams still won 250k, and you didn't understand like why. How did, for example, Cluj-Napoca? I think we were better than EnVyUs in the finals. I think we were the better team that time, but still we didn't win the event. And that's the point of view that you don't understand. Like how is that possible that you are better and you still lose the final? And that's why I was so emotional in New York. We managed to win that kind of event, and that's what you were playing for. Like we didn't have E-League back then, I think, or we had probably, but not that big.
Sure.
And it just meant a lot. Like that's what you are playing for the title of event like that.
So, okay, when you say that, like you'd lost in the final of the major, etc., up until this last major, there's actually a piece of trivia not many people know, which is every single major before Cluj-Napoca, before PGL Krakow rather, was won by a team where all 5 players came from the same country. Now, obviously, Gambit has Kazakhstanis and they had Zeus and they had Russian, but even then, still all can speak the same language, some shared culture, you know. That's not too dissimilar. Don't you, in theory, you have a good excuse, right, for not winning a major. There's no Slovakian team that could win a major. You can't play with your home countrymen. Why do you hold yourself to such a high standard?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like now in FaZe, we have a huge chance to win major, to be honest, because
sure.
I think we have everything to actually achieve that and achieve something big. And I don't think to be from one country is the main thing that has to be. Sure. I mean, if you're comfortable speaking English, then why do you have to play with your countrymen? It doesn't, like, just because, I mean, obviously it's easier to talk and stuff like that, but if you're comfortable to speak in English, why don't you want to try in the international team? I mean, I don't think it's a big thing that it's a must. I don't think it's a must nowadays in CS. Maybe before it was, but I think nowadays any mixed team can play good if you're, like, obviously English is not hard to use in CS, and if you can call, then why it has to be? I don't think so. So that kind of stuff, it's not advantage anymore, I would say.
Okay. So when this Na Vi lineup that you were still a part of, the one where starix had to leave and then Caesar was the in-game leader, you had so many tournaments where you made the playoffs. And I know behind the scenes from talking to players in the team, like that you got like Coach Andy and he was trying to change things, and then FaZe was trying to work all the time. It's not like people weren't doing anything, and they just turned up to the event. So things must have been being tried and tweaked and trying out new things. How come the result was kind of always the same? Like it was nearly always, make the playoffs and just lose immediately.
I don't think we had the right attitude in the team, or we didn't trust each other anymore. Even though we had a good lineup, and Andy is a very good coach, to be honest. I would even consider him one of the best coaches at the moment. The thing was that we were not synchronized. I mean, FaZe almost never listened to Andy because FaZe thought that his decisions are the better ones. So that's why I think we didn't play as good. Because, I mean, we believed in FaZe that he can be a good in-game leader, but at the same time, there was the issue that he didn't listen to coach. Like, why do we have coach when you are not listening to him? He just tries to help you. He doesn't want to take over your role or something. So that was a big issue. I think we were missing a leader at the time. We probably had the skill, but we didn't have a leader. We were just running frags. Like we could do some tactic, and we would just get crushed because we didn't have we were not synchronized. That was the huge issue. That's why we were bad.
Was Simple a bad teammate in Navi? Like, was he complaining or being rude or saying like, I'm doing really well, why are you guys doing bad? Was there any of those things that people have heard from past teams?
Honestly, I don't like to talk about how the person is. I never did it to like ban someone or something. I mean, everyone of us have some issues. Someone like in CIS, they have the mentality, they have the fighting mentality, and because of that, they have the anger in themselves. So
okay,
it's like everyone. I think CIS region is like that. That they have the mentality to win, and they have the fighting mentality. They will never give up. But at the same time, they have the anger for themselves or towards someone else. So obviously, if in CIS everybody has that. So yes, like everyone had it. I was like I cannot say that he was a bad teammate. He wasn't that bad teammate. I mean, we had different opinions. He was very good player and he had very good ideas. In that case, he was teammate that in game. He would try to do something. He would try to win the game by himself, but that's not how CS is working. And I mean, he was trying to help sometimes, but not as much as teammates should. I mean, okay. if you would never, you should never complain about the cause of the team captain. If you want to win, you have to believe in the captain 100%. And I don't think even anybody from us did. And maybe he had a different way to show it, but that's his personal thing. Like we cannot change him. It's up to him. Like sure. If he's a good teammate or no, it's up to him to decide, not to me to talk about it. I mean,
okay, let me ask you this then: Are GuardiaN and Simple just incompatible as teammates? Like if you'd have been in a team that had a really great in-game leader and all the other teammates were really great, could you have played together, or do you think you're just not supposed to be in a team together?
I think if like past year I was not a good teammate either. Like I didn't pay attention to the team as much as I should. And if me and Simple could work, we could work together, but he would have to change a lot. I mean, he would have to learn how to understand the teammates or some person and listen to him. Like if you're not listening to someone and you don't care about someone, then it cannot work.
Sure.
So, I mean, of course it could work, but probably not now. Maybe in the future. Who knows? Everything, like, we are all changing, maybe in 1 year or maybe in 2 weeks, I will be different or you will be different okay. Or,
yeah.
Everyone is still growing and he's still young. He's like 19 years old, 20.
So, yeah.
So he has a lot of things to work on, and I'm pretty sure one day he will become the best player in the world. But I don't think it's nowadays. He has a lot of things to work on and learn.
So when you get left Navi, and obviously people will remember you and Simple were going backwards and forwards saying stuff, and then he said something, and then you said something. And one of the things he said that I actually think really shocked a lot of people and in a way kind of turned people against you was he just said this line where he said that you hadn't gone to some of the boot camps that the team had, and like you hadn't like practiced as much. And then you even said something similar yourself, like you hadn't turned on CS for outside of official matches, obviously, for like a year or something. Now, at the beginning of the interview, people heard you were a very driven guy, you were a guy playing all the time, or even while you were working. During this period in Navi when Zeus was gone, what was wrong? What affected you?
Well, to start with the statements and stuff like that, like obviously when you have contract with organization, you cannot say on social media that everything is bad, you have bad teammates or something like that. Obviously, you will say that everything is good. Like you will try to keep the fans in a good way. Of course, you will not say like, "Hey, everything is shit. This one is a bad guy," and stuff like this. Like obviously, everyone can take it however they want. So I had a contract. I cannot say bad things, and I always try to defend the name of Navi. So I would never say anything bad about the team. That would be the best. And if we talk about the bootcamps, obviously, I have a huge part of not attending the bootcamps, but it's not like I don't want to attend them. One was 1 week before my wedding, so it was more like I didn't have a suit ready, and a lot of issues appeared, and I was in the situation of I had a huge chaos in my head, and all I had power for was writing Navi that I'm not coming to bootcamp because I have issues, and obviously I had in my head that I can leave my wife home alone 1 week before the wedding to fix everything for me. I mean, of course, a huge mistake by me that I didn't tell them that I don't want to go to bootcamp before. So yeah, it was. I take that on me that I failed.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the bootcamp thing that I didn't attend. It's not like it. Yeah.
So after this, you got this amazing opportunity to come to FaZe. Was FaZe like the obvious first option? Because I heard behind the scenes, back when people were, all the rumors of who will join who after the major, I heard a bunch of stories. And in fact, I've heard them going back over the years that like, maybe you'll go to Mouse Sports or maybe play with Oscar, or maybe in the past it used to be that you'd go to the Mouse Sports of the old lines as well. There's always been all these rumors that you'd go to a different international team, basically. Was there other places you might have gone instead of FaZe, or was FaZe the only option?
Honestly, I never heard of Mouse Sports offer, so
okay.
I had like there was a time when NIP wanted to buy me from Navi, but Navi asked for too much, so it didn't happen. So I had option of NIP that time, and I don't think I had actually anything else. There were some NA teams, or there was like after the Krakow event, I knew that SIS will be leaving Navi.
Yes. And
we will be leaving Navi, so it was like maybe create some optic lineup, or I mean not like optic.
That type stuff, of team, though, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of team with the players like Freiberg and stuff. So I had that kind of options, but I didn't really have so many options. I was talking to karrigan, and it happened somehow.
So I know from talking to him myself that karrigan is the kind of in-game leader who doesn't like come in with an idea like, oh, you're my star player, you're going to do exactly. He tends to be the other way. He like wants to know, what does the star player want to do, and what will make this guy comfortable, what will make him happy. Did he kind of sell you on the idea of what it would be like if you came and played in FaZe?
Of course, we talked about it, like what I like to play, and what kind of player he wants me to play, to be in the game. So we had talk about it, obviously, but Finn is the kind of leader that he makes you to play 100% in the game. Like, if you're a sniper and you are good at anti-fragging, he will obviously send you wherever you want to go. Like, if you ask to go to pick B on Mirage, he will let you go, and he will somehow create the tactic based on this call. And or we just he exactly knows how to use his players. I mean, obviously we are the team of huge individuals. I mean, Olofmeister, me, Rain, Nico, we are all good individually, and it was questionable, like, how can he make it work? But he managed to make it work somehow. I mean, we are still learning, and we have a lot of weeks to practice, because we didn't really have time to fix every single map. Like,
sure,
we have a lot of mistakes. Like, we won ESL New York and the event before. I mean, after E-League.
Yeah, pre-league, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we had the upper hand because we were good individually at the time, but now we have to actually find out what is working or not now. So we have to find the right setups. Like, we still are changing on, like, CT setups. We are still finding who is the best couple, like, I mean, pair to play with, or teammate. So, but I think Finn will make us work very good in the near future. I mean, we still didn't show our best game, and I'm pretty sure it will come, and I hope it will be in Oakland.
When you went to that first tournament, though, the Dreamhack Masters Malmo, and you didn't have, like, the hardest group or anything. That was a group where a lot of people thought, oh, it should be fine, you know. And you went out in the group stage. Were you worried that, like, the experiment would fail?
Actually, I didn't, because here in FaZe it's completely different than in my previous teams. Like in Na Vi, for example, we wouldn't go and practice right after we lost the game. So what we did after losing to Gambit in the quarterfinals was it quarterfinals?
It was in the group, but yeah.
In the group. Okay, never mind. So in the group was that we went to eat, and after the food we went to watch all the demos against Gambit, and the next day we had practice games. So every single day we were in Malmo, we were practicing right after we lost the tournament. So we knew that everyone knows in the team what's the main goal in this team, to become the best team in the world, to make something legendary. So the good thing on this team is that everyone wants to practice. We lost the tournament, but we still want to practice. We lost the tournament, we still want to fix our mistakes. So that's our strength, I would say.
So, as we referenced earlier in the interview, when you won New York in 2016 was the first 250k or more tournament you'd won. Right, in FaZe, you won 2 in a row and never lost a single map at these 2 tournaments. What is that like?
That's something incredible. I would have never thought that it can happen, actually. I was sure that we can win one of the tournaments, but I never thought that we would never win a single. Never lose a single map. So that's something incredible. I mean, people can say that we didn't play SK or we didn't play G2 or other teams. Like, that's no point, because they lost to Liquid, they lost to Cloud9. Like, how can we play them if they lost to these teams? And that's not our mistake. Like, I think that time we were a very strong team. I mean, those 2 events we would beat even SK that time, because that's what I think, because nobody knew what kind of team we are, so they didn't know what what we are good in and what to wait from us. So in Epicenter, SK got ready for our playstyle, and they defeated us because of that. So they were already ready to play us that time. I mean, Epicenter, and if we would meet them in New York or E-League, I'm pretty sure we would win. Maybe not 2-0, but 2-1.
Did you get used to the FaZe lineup now? Is there anything weird about playing with, like, Olofmeister and Nico? I mean, these used to be the star players of the other teams, right?
I don't think. I think it's perfect. I mean, we are a very nice. I mean, very good bunch of people. Like, we spend all of our time together on events. We do stuff together. We go to eat together. We do everything together what we can. So we are trying to build up some team spirit and perfect team that can win tournament. And playing with Olofmeister, obviously, even in 2015 we were like kind of rivals.
Yes.
So I mean, it's very nice feeling to play with Olaf Matter. And as a person, I have never talked to Olaf Matter before I joined FaZe. So, I mean, we could say like, hey, how are you? And what do you think about something? But we would never have a talk, like longer talk, you know. And
he doesn't trash talk you about FNATIC always beating Navi.
And like it's a joke, of course. Sometimes he does, but I found out that he's a very, very nice person. And obviously he's a very kind and humble personality, and Nico is the kind of, you know, young star that sometimes he's like cocky but still a nice person. So I mean, he has the right to be that kind. He's young and he's playing probably the best CS in the world, along with Cold Zero. So I mean, we are all like, if I would have to say something about my teammates, they're all nice, and I'm happy I have the opportunity to play in this team.
So obviously everyone knows Olaf Meister has won majors when he was in FNATIC, and Nico hasn't, but he's obviously very young still in his career. But you, Rain, and obviously karrigan is very famous for being one of the players who has made very deep in majors but never won one. You three players and Nico, none of you have won a major. So even though you've accomplished so much in your career, it has to happen with FaZe, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I told my teammates, and I said it many times to other people, that I'm already 26. I will be 27. So this is probably my last team, and I will do my best to win at least one major with this team, and I will do my best to achieve something with this team, something legendary. So I'm pretty sure that will be my last active CS team before I become, I don't know, coach, manager or something. So I will do my best, and yeah, it has to be FaZe.
So back in the days when, I mean, like I said, in the early days in Navi, it was like a good team, but it wasn't the best, you know, and gradually it improved. Right? I've heard this many, many times, that you've told people over the years, like anytime you weren't feeling CS that much, you told people, oh, I might just quit CS actually. In fact, you know what, I'm going to go and become a Dota 2 pro. Is this true? Did you actually say that?
I did actually, because at that time I used to play Dota like, I don't know, 7-8 hours a day.
Okay.
I think I was actually good in Dota back then, and I still play Dota now, but it's not the same. I mean, I lost all the skill in Dota, so if I would like to play Dota, then I have to play many hours a day. But
what position were you? Were you a one player? Were you a carry?
I used to play carry, and I loved to play Invoker and Puck, so it was like a mix that I could play Invoker and Puck, and I was playing mostly carry, but yeah, I love Dota, and there was a time when I hated CS, and I exactly remember when was it. It was summer when it was ESWC in Montreal.
Yes.
And at the time, yeah, I think so. And I completely hated CS. We were winning. I was still playing good, but I felt like I'm so bad at the game. Like sometimes
that was when you were getting like MVP awards and all the tournaments, though, right?
Yeah, might be, yeah. But the point is that sometimes you have the feeling when you're holding the mouse that it's completely wrong. Okay. So I had it for like 2 months back then, and I was like, I don't want to play CS anymore because it feels so bad. Like, I don't know, it felt very bad. And back then I wanted to switch to Dota. That I will grind Dota and fuck CS.
Okay.
But I'm happy it didn't happen.
So I have one other question from your career that is a very weird one for everyone listening now is going to be like, what? So I remember when this Navi team with starix as the in-game leader was getting to all these finals and winning the small events, and everyone thought, they're going to win the major. And I remember talking to starix, and I once told him, and I naively thought he was the one making these calls. I said to him, I don't really understand this team though, because it's clearly a very good team, right? But since the best player in the team is an AWPer, why do you always force? Like, why don't you just save and get an AWP? And he actually told me, oh, I tell them to do that. But GuardiaN just says, like, no, I want to buy a deagle now. Is this true? Why didn't you save? You like to force buy deagles?
No, but back then it was, I could hit very good with deagle back then.
Sure, yeah.
And,
better with the AWP, though.
The meta was already changing that time, that the force buy will be very strong.
Yeah.
And it wasn't I won't say it was only my call. It was
Sure,
also his calls. Like, let's force buy. Like, if you're already spending some money on grenades, then what's the point to save? And obviously, you will not have up with armor. Like, it's very hard to play up without armor on certain maps. I mean, I don't have a problem to do it. I can still play up without armor, but on certain maps like train and stuff like this, it's very hard to play without armor because you're getting like they are using all the nades and stuff like this. You're losing HP easily. So on certain maps, if we did force buy, then I believed I had to believe that we can win the round. So that's why I bought, for example, deagle a lot of times, and it worked a lot of times. But it wasn't only my call. I had the logic that if I spend 500 already on smoke and flash that is needed in the certain force buy, then what's the point of saving the rest of the money while we can probably win the round? And if we lose the round, I will probably not have up anyway. So
okay,
yeah, I had the logic like there's no point to save everything.
At the end of the interview, do you have a final message or someone you want to thank or say hello to?
I will say hello to all the fans and all the haters. I mean, of course, we are rating HLTV and we see that we have a lot of haters. I don't understand why. I mean, we haven't done anything bad. Just because we are a team made from superstars doesn't mean we are like something bad, you know, that we are evil or something, like we are enemies for someone. But yeah, I mean, it's pushing us forward, and I'm thankful to all the haters and all the fans that they are standing or not standing on our sides. I mean, it's making us stronger, and I'm pretty sure we will do some big thing in the future with this team. And all the fans, thank you for support, obviously. And yeah, let's see what will happen.
Dziękuję.
Thank you, too.
What in God's name is that from Thorin?